All right, so another example of a box plot. Let's do problem number 6. So again, what we want to do is, there we go. What we want to do is make a line. So we can see that we just need a number around this, right? So we could kind of start with 20. 20 is pretty close to this, right? It would just be right before it. And again, we can go up by 5s, 2s, 10s. So I'm just going to go up by 5s again. So 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. All right. So we got to make show where our minimum and maximum is. So the minimum is going to be at 19.95, which is just short of 20. And then we have 54.63. So again, pretty just short of 55. You don't need to be exact, but you know, around about. Then we need to put our Q1 and Q3. So 26 is going to be closer to the 25. And the 37 is going to be right about in the middle, just left of middle. All right, so this is where our box is. And then we see that 30.95 is going to be our median, which is going to be just above 30. We just extend them out, and we got it. There's our box plot. So, what kind of distribution do we have here? Well, this time we see that the majority of the data is on the left, and it's getting pulled to the right, probably. So, this is probably a right skewed, or skewed right distribution. Good. Cool, cool, cool. Now, let's talk outliers. So, an outlier, before we talk about the outliers, we need to talk about interquartile range. So, the interquartile range is the middle 50% of the observations. So, if you remember the 5-number summary, right? We said Q1 separates the bottom 25. The median is the bottom 50%. So basically, right, our 5 numbers are separating out all of our data in 25%. So if we want to talk about the middle 25%, this is just Q1 and Q3. So it's a range. Remember, range means subtraction, right? Max minus min. So it's Q3 minus Q1. And that's it. So if we go back to our problems, right? Number 5, find the interquartile range. So out of the 5 numbers, remember the second is Q1, the fourth is Q3. So the interquartile range, also known as IQR, that's just 98 minus 88, which is 10. And that's the answer. For the next one, number 6, second one is Q1, fourth one is Q3. Interquartile range is going to be 37.24 minus 26.06, which is 11.18. All right, so last thing we're going to talk about for this section, outliers. So outliers are those extreme values that we talked about earlier. The ones that if you have and your value doesn't change, right? We talk about resistant. So if you have a measurement that's resistant, it's because it's resistant to outliers. Very large or very small numbers. So here's how you check for outliers. First, you need to determine the interquartile range. Interquartile range? What? Didn't we just talk about that? Yeah, it's like I know what I'm talking about. It's like I have a system for this. It's great. So the first thing we gotta find is the interquartile range. Then what we need to find is the lower and upper fences So with unusual, we found the lower and upper bounds, right? For unusual, so I'm just going to reiterate, right? Remember, unusual means it's outside 2 standard deviations. Outlier is going to be outside of the fences, so it's going to be a little different. So a fence is considered, the lower fence is going to be Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. So 1.5, or the Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. The upper fence is going to be Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. The 1.5 is always there. The IQR is the only thing that's going to change in the Q1 and Q3. But it's always going to be 1.5. So if it is outside the fences, it's considered an outlier. Because this actually ends up being very far away from the middle of your data. So these are the ones that are extreme. And so extreme that outliers, for the most part, are always unusual values. But unusual values might not be outliers. Two standard deviations isn't necessarily that far away, right? 5% of our data is outside of that. But outliers, whew, that's very far away. So all outliers are definitely more than 2 standard deviations, but 2 standard deviations away isn't necessarily going to be far enough to be an outlier. So it's the square and rectangle scenario. All right, here's a lot of words, so let's actually do it. So last 2 problems. Let's figure out, are there any outliers? So determine the outliers. Step 1, IQR. So we already said the IQR for number 5 was 10, right? So to find the lower fence, you do Q1, which is 88, minus 1.5 times 10. And when you do that, you get 73. The upper fence, remember, is going to be based off of Q3. So we do Q3, which is 98, plus 1.5 times 10, which is 113. So any outlier has to be outside of 73 and 113. And if you look at all of our data, right, the smallest is 73. So it's not outside of the fences, right? It's within the fences. It's a part of the fence. So that is okay. 73 is okay. And the largest number we got is 102. And 102 is in the fences. So since everything is in the fences, there are no outliers. All right, let's do problem number 6. So let's find these outliers. So remember we said that the IQR, the interquartile range, was 11.18. So we got to find our 2 fences. So the lower fence is Q1, which is the 26.06, minus 1.5 times the IQR. And we get 9.29. And the upper fence, remember, that's Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. So the third quartile is 37.24 plus 1.5 times the IQR, which is 11.17, or 18, excuse me. So we get 54.01. So, are there any values outside of the 9.29 and the 54.01? Are there any values outside of that? Well, obviously, our maximum is, right? So we at least have one value, the 54.63. That's definitely outside of our fence. Are there any others? Yeah, so this time you don't want to just look at your 5 numbers. You actually want to look at all of the numbers. because there could be multiple outliers, and there actually are this time, right? This 54.17 is outside the fences because it's more than 54.01. Are there any others? Now, the smallest we got is 19.5. So that's way, the 9-point number is way less than that. So it looks like those are the only two outliers. So we do have two outliers this time, which is 54.17 and 54.63. Yeah, so the trick there, again, make sure that you're looking at all of your data, not just the 5-number summary. And that's it for this section. So as always, if that was confusing, make sure to contact me, email me, text me, whatever you need to do. Other than that, you have a great day.